Welcome back to the shop, guys. Summer's winding down and I hope you've had a good one. Have there been times though during the summer where you've wondered, is my C5 running kind of hot? Up in the 220, 230 range? Exactly how hot should a C5 run and how do you know for sure? And if your C5 is running hot, what's the best thing you can do to drop those temperatures back down? We're going to talk about all of those things and a whole lot more next.
Toys for Life.
Right out of the gate, let's talk about low temperature thermostats. A lot of people seem to say, hey, can't I just use a 160 degree thermostat? Won't that help my C5 run cooler? The answer is no, it won't. Most of us throughout all of the summer months, our C5 is running well north of 190 degrees, and that's with a 187 degree thermostat. So even if you use a 160 degree thermostat, or if they made one, perhaps, like a 100 degree thermostat, which they don't make, your C5 throughout the majority of the summer months is going to run down the road at north of 190 degrees. So it really makes almost zero sense to use a 160 degree thermostat. All right, Toys for Life, so if our thermostat doesn't control the temperature our C5 runs at, what does? Well, there's a couple things. Number one, how fast are you going down the road? If you're going down the road at 90 miles an hour on a 40 degree day, it's probably going to run at 187 because that's sufficient wind speed going through your condenser and radiator to really drop that temperature down to 187. But that's rare. I mean, how many of us really drive our C5 when it's 40 degrees out? Now on a 90 degree day, if you're driving down the road, that's plenty of air going through the radiator. And if you're just driving down the freeway, it's probably going to run around 200, 210, somewhere in there. And that's fine. What about if you're sitting in traffic? That's where it gets tricky. You're going to be surprised to learn exactly how hot GM has programmed your computer to let the engine get before the first fan comes on and the second fan comes on. And for that answer, let's just take a look inside the program that comes in a stock 2003 C5 Corvette. So when you first get HP tuners, you download the stock file from your car. In this case, here's my 2003 Corvette stock tune. So my stock fans were set up to come on at 226 for the first one, and if that's not enough, 235 from the second one. And this is the way that it came from the factory. Now, just for fun, I'll show you what I've currently got them set up at. And I've got them set up at 203 for the first one and 208 for the second one. All right, so now you're convinced that it's not abnormal for your Corvette sitting in traffic to get up to 225, 230 degrees. But what if you're driving down the road, like we talked about earlier, and it's 75 degrees out and you're at 230? What's the most likely problem? And for that, let's look at the front end of the C5. In case you didn't know, the C5 takes in the air for the radiator right down low through there. And in a vehicle that's probably 20 years old, like your C5 Corvette, there's a lot of leaves on the road, rocks, bugs that are juicy that clog up all the coils in the condenser, which sits in front of the radiator. All of these different types of debris over time can do a significant job at clogging your condenser and your radiator. So the number one thing you can do to lower those temps, if you haven't done it in the last few years, you got to clean the condenser and the radiator, and here's how you do that. Loosen the clamp that holds the air bridge to the throttle body, and then remove the 4 bolts that hold the plastic radiator hold down to the frame. And then go ahead and pull the radiator hold down out. Get a look at what's in between there, all that tree fuzz, cotton, sticks, dirt. I'm guessing, 10% of the flow blocked at least, and you'll see a pile later on after we blow this out on the ground. We've got to remove the fan shroud from the Corvette so we can get really good access to blow out the radiator. The first step is to remove some of the clips that hold the wiring harness to the shroud, and then the 2 connectors that hold the harness to the motors. And then if you can see it, this bracket right down here, all I did is just lift up on the radiator shroud to lift it up and out of that bracket, and now it's going to drop out from the bottom. There's a couple on the bottom that have to pop out too, but it basically just sits in some clips. It's not bolted to the radiator assembly. And if I did everything right, this should be able to pop up and out at this point. And for the 15 minutes it took to take that out, it gives us just a ton more room. And it's going to allow us easier access to blow out the radiator and the condenser. This is about to get messy, so using a sheet, I've got the front of the C5 draped off, and that's to protect the rest of my garage from getting full of dust and debris, and then use another sheet to protect the engine. And now for the fruits of our labor. And this one actually wasn't so bad. I've seen quite a bit worse. Guys, all you got to do now is put everything back together, and depending on how much debris you got out, you should be rewarded with some lower coolant temps. If you got anything out of this video, please be sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.